Good evening. Welcome to the Conservation Board meeting of November 5th, 2025. It's good to see so many people here. And we'll give you a chance to speak when the time comes, if you're interested. To start with, I would invite everyone to rise for the salute to the flag. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. What is your pleasure on the minutes of September 10th, 2025?
Move to be accepted as presented.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? What is your pleasure on the minutes of September 24th, 2025?
Move to accept.
Second?
All in favor?
I abstain, I wasn't there.
And the next 2 minutes, we need to wait until we have more board members. Public hearings A019131, the Patricia Lynn Prue Revocable Trust. We have talked about this for a while, and Aaron, I want to congratulate you on presenting a new plan to us that looks remarkably approvable. If you'd like to just briefly, I do want to budget time because we have a lot going on tonight, a lot of hearings, and we don't have a lot of time to do it. So if I start to interrupt, that's probably why.
It's all been stamped in, Aaron?
Yes, all stamped in. One sec. I was requested to bring hard copies for everyone, so I will just hand them out.
You give me the whole pile, I'll hand it.
There's the three there.
Does Marty have one?
I've seen it already.
Oh, you've seen, all right, well,
That's what you emailed.
and I have one back in.
See it? Yeah. Did you get one? I got it.
So I wanted to thank the chairman for encouraging me to provide for the board a review of dynamic revetments, cobbles, berms, et cetera. I think that in there you'll find that we've done some extensive research on these devices, which are being used very successfully. Your timing was excellent because I ended up at a conference in California about 2 weeks or 3 weeks after the last hearing, where this project at Surfers Point in Ventura, California, which is a cobble beach, actually won a national award. It's been in about this is the newest section, but the original section was built over 5 years ago. And it's been performing extremely well. And I provided you with a typical cross-section of what that looks like. And, I'm happy to answer any questions for the board. I think that the dynamic revetment is going to work very, very well on this property in conjunction with the vegetative bluff stabilization, which we have also proposed.
I agree, thank you. And Marty?
Good evening, Marty Shea, Chief Environmental Analyst for the town. The construction of a cobble berm is actually an approach that is consistent with environmentally less damaging practicable alternatives, which I have asked to be evaluated in this case and other cases where stone conventional revetments are planned. Just for the benefit of the public, what dynamic revetment involves is the placement of considerable amounts of bay-compatible and beach-compatible cobble. The cobble is not fixed, so that it models natural beach condition where you have considerable bay cobble that's washed up in storm events. The cobble is loose, so it allows the water and waves to shift and change the location of the cobble as much as possible. Not only does it provide for stabilization of the upper beach and bluff toe, it also typically allows for colonization of native wetland and beach vegetation, as well as is oftentimes successful in catching and accumulating large quantities of sand, whether or not that sand is contributed by erosion of the bluff face or through literal transport in the Peconic Bay. Ideally, as mentioned at a prior hearing, there is not a great need for any armoring at this beachfront because there are no structures threatened. But so initially I had asked that conditions be left to remain and recover on their own, possibly supplemented with a lesser amount of cobble. But one of the benefits of the applicant's modified plan for this site is he is now willing to demolish and remove the existing wire gabion baskets that were historically installed along a section of the beach and really are never approved by the DEC or other agencies today. That the presence of that gabion had resulted in a loss of beach. There was some discussion back and forth as to whether or not that gabion could be repaired or would need to be replaced. It was installed pursuant apparently to state permits and not permits by this board. And the gabion baskets are very fixed structure. Their placement results in beach loss, and their presence also eliminates shoreline habitat for shorebirds, for crabs, for horseshoe crabs, for diamondback terrapins. So a major plus of the applicant's modified plan is that they are now willing to remove those gabion baskets in the interest of creating a continuous wide stretch of naturalized cobble beach. The only additional comments that I have, the applicant, currently the site is marked again by an eroding bluff face, and as is typically observed in such cases, the more vertical sections of the bluff face are devoid of vegetation. The applicant was initially and may still be proposing to plant the exposed sand sections of that vertical bluff face with beach grass, and then to install jute netting in an attempt to stabilize that near vertical bluff face for the purposes of plugging it with beach grass, for the purposes of enabling work crews to install the beach grass without resulting in additional erosion as a result of trampling. And then was proposing to install jute netting, which is a very finely webbed netting for the purposes of stabilizing that ground and plugging the beach grass. Biodegradable jute netting is proposed. However, based upon my observations, I have great concerns about the proposed use of jute netting as part of the replanting of the bluff. I should preface that by saying, as I believe the construction of the dynamic revetment or cobble beach and berm will well stabilize the bluff toe. I think the bluff should be permitted to recover naturally. Some of the concerns that I have is even though the jute netting is intended to be biodegradable because it's in sand, and it takes many, many years to deteriorate. And while it's present, it poses a significant risk of injury and mortality to wildlife. And just to give you an example of the wildlife that is threatened by jute netting, whether it be biodegradable or not, is some of our native snakes. What happens is when the snakes try to get through the jute netting, their scales get caught on the jute netting. They get entangled in the jute netting. And unless the jute netting is monitored constantly and those snakes are released, they die. Bird life is also threatened because their talons very easily get caught in the jute netting. Small mammals can be affected as well as deer. I saw at least one case where a deer, a fawn, had caught its leg in the jute netting, and because we had a sheer bluff, it snapped its leg trying to get out of that jute netting. So I would highly recommend against the use of jute netting as part of any revegetation. I really don't see the need for revegetation. I think we want to get that cobble placed and then allow the area to naturally recover. And now erosion is a natural process, so you're still going to see bluff erosion, which is a beneficial process as it contributes sand to the beach. But I don't think there's a need to actively interfere with their natural recovery processes by planting beach grass or other vegetation. Lastly, in the interest of protecting this restored beach and allowing for a full recovery of that bluff and upper beach, I would recommend that as a condition of any wetland permit, that a covenanted, naturally vegetated buffer be established landward of mean high water. That buffer would be roughly about 75 feet and would be sufficient to take in the face of the bluff and go a little bit landward of the bluff crest, just so that we can ensure in future years that this area can be left to fully recover to a natural state modeled after other existing unarmored beaches. So while there may not be an emergency at this site because of the home's location at a significant distance from the eroding bluff face, I do support the applicant's current plan. It's consistent, again, with recommendations that I've made in many cases where conventional stone revetments are being proposed. And I'm very happy to hear that part of that plan is to remove the existing gabions, which are resulting in beach loss and adverse wetland impacts. So I'm recommending that the hearing be closed tonight. The applicant will need to come forward with a detailed drawing and revised survey and some greater specificity in terms of the size of that cobble and methodology for placement, the access, but I'm sure I can work well with the applicant in order to provide those refinements to the drawing in a form that's acceptable for wetland permitted. Thank you.
Thank you, Marty. Are there any questions from the board? Before we close the hearing, is there anyone in the public who would like to speak in this application? There being none,
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second?
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? A 024038, 37 East Shore Drive LLC. We've talked about this for a while too, and I've seen the new plans. Thank you for presenting those new plans. And once again, as in the previous application, these look amazingly approvable.
Fantastic. Daphne Vaughn, Surfside Environmental Planning for 37 East Shore Drive LLC. The last time we met was middle of August. I did submit this package to the file on Monday. It includes a letter detailing all that we've done since that date, primarily two things. One, my office went out and did some reconnaissance on beach measurements and consistency between the areas of revetted properties to the north of my client's property and the unrevetted properties from my clients and two properties south. We saw consistency with revetted versus unrevetted beach, and that's all detailed in here. The second thing that my client did was hire Keith Masseria, an engineer who's with me here in the audience. And we came up with a revised plan that is in your submission package. We basically changed it from a solid revetment to scattered piles of the medium-sized 300 to 400-pound rocks, and then completely covering all of that with varying sizes of cobble and sand, and planting it with Spartina patens on the seaward side and a 15-foot naturally vegetated non-disturbance, non-fertilization buffer of beach grass landward of the crest of the cobble. So we're also showing the planting of 10 bulb and burlapped groundsel bush on either side to keep a view shed through the center of the property. And mainly, it's comparable to the plan that Marty had presented and comparable to, I think it's a good compromise between our two plans, essentially. But we did also, we provided a lot of photos of the day that we were out there to measure the beach on October 7th. A few days later was that nor'easter on October 12th. We submitted photos showing the impacts during that storm. And then I was there again on October 27th. And you could see the erosion that occurred particularly across the association property at 43 East Shore Drive of that revetment that we had modeled ours after initially. So we're hoping that this plan that we're proposing will do what it needs to do during these storm events. And that's really, we have a letter here from Keith Masseria that references work that was done by Aram Tertunian from First Coastal on 51 East Shore Road back in 2018, and about alternatives that were discussed within a report for that property as well. So if there's any questions from the board, both Keith and I are here to address them.
Thank you, Daphne.
That's it.
Good evening again, Marty Shea, Chief Environmental Analyst for the town. I'm happy to see that the plans have been significantly modified to abandon the former proposal to install a fixed rock revetment, because revetments upon exposure can result in downdrift impacts, accelerated erosion, and beach loss, and also destroy habitat for shorebirds and other wildlife. The house at present is not endangered at all due to the beach erosion that's occurring. It's actually located outside of a flood zone, so there was no imminent need to be very aggressive in terms of armoring. The current plans are well aligned, as the applicant alluded to early recommendations and sketches that I had provided to the applicant that centered on enhancing beach stabilization by placement of a bay and beach compatible cobble with a cobble berm created along the escarped headland, and with naturally vegetated buffer established landward of that cobble. Because the rock that's being installed is not engineered to be fixed as far as creating any kind of a seawall, the presence of that rock, because it's widely spaced, should not present any great danger in terms of downdrift impact. There's a couple additional comments. It's interesting that earlier at a hearing, there was concern expressed about the loss of some of the existing lawn and conversion to beach. Well, it's interesting if you look at the East Shore Drive area, and you look at historical aerials of that area. That area always was beach. So what is actually happening is when a little bit of the lawn is being eroded and beach is reappearing, actually seeing a natural recovery to more extensive beach, as historically, naturally occurred at this site. So I am speaking in support of the modified plan. And I commend the applicant for evaluating practicable alternatives that would have less environmental damage than a stone revetment as required by Chapter 325. That being said, the hearing can be closed tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Marty. Does the board have any questions?
No.
Thank you, Daphne. One of the things we look at typically on a shore hardening structure such as this is the impacts that that structure might cause on the downdrift parcels. And to mitigate that is a challenge, and many times it cannot be mitigated, which means it's very difficult for us to find a way to issue a permit for that. The way you've changed this around removes that concern. It appears that that will not be an impact, and that's why this is an application that meets the criteria for issuance of a permit. So thank you for the work you've done. Is there anyone in the public who'd like to speak on this application?
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second, anybody on Zoom?
Bill? It's been moved and seconded to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. A 024057, Gregory Robbins and Linda Robbins.
Did you stamp them?
No.
Okay, you just need to get these stamped first. Thank you. I'll give them to you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Keith Masseria, civil engineer with LK McLean Associates, representing the owners of 31 East Shore Drive in Southampton. We've since revised the original plan, which was a revetment, then a revetment covered with beach grass, now to our updated design, which is essentially a boulder field consisting of approximately 14 natural boulders, each about 6 feet in diameter, locally sourced. They will be placed at the toe of the existing slope and approximately 10-foot seaward. A layer of 8 to 10-inch cobble will be installed from the top of the existing slope down to the seaward limit of the second row of boulders. This area in between the boulders would be planted with native wetland vegetation to enhance the ecological resilience. And the existing lawn area will be removed for a distance of approximately 25 feet from the top of the revetment towards the house and be replanted with American beach grass as well as 6 native salt-tolerant shrubs. And we feel that the revised design addresses the board's concerns regarding shoreline armoring, as it no longer results in a continuous
Wow,
revetment.
that's good.
Thank you. This is the best plan I've seen you present. Thank you. Marty.
Good evening again, Marty Shea, Chief Environmental Analyst for the town. Since the last hearing, I have been in communication with the applicant. I reviewed her initial proposal, made some recommendations for further modification. The applicant considered my recommendations, came forward with the current plan that addresses the concerns that I had raised. The alternative, creating naturalized boulder field rather than constructing an engineered rock revetment is a practicable alternative that I've often asked applicants to consider, where the landowner is concerned about erosion. The boulder field, what it is essentially, it's a placement of staggered, widely spaced boulders, variable sizes, as an underpinning for the cobble and the sand placement and the natural vegetation restoration. And its intent is that in the event of exposure during a storm event, when the waves and surge approach the beach, their energy will be deflected in varying directions rather than downward off a vertical or angled revetment. They're greatly diminishing the wave energy, breaking up the tidal surge, the end result of which is less threat of erosion higher up the beach. The alternative of creating a dynamic revetment or a more extensive cobble beach berm at this property was considered. However, unlike a prior application, the beach is very narrow in this case. Usually you want a wider expanse in order to create a dynamic revetment or cobble beach, modeled after natural cobble beaches that will be successful in addressing erosion. Again, in this case, the residence is located some distance back, so there's no imminent threat of damage to the residence from erosion. The residence is outside of the FEMA flood zone. However, at present, there is a septic system which is closer to the beach. Consistent with my recommendation, as indicated by the applicant, they are proposing a naturally vegetated buffer that would extend in excess of 25 feet landward of where the boulders are placed. And the closest gap between the boulders would be about 8 feet. So there will yet be an ability for people to walk along this beach. It won't interfere with beach access, and that 25-foot wide buffer would extend up to the general footprint of the existing septic system. A large enough footprint has been set aside in the event that they want to entertain installing an IAOWTS in the future. It also leaves sufficient area for any redevelopment plans that may come forward at some later date. So the benefit of this plan is that, again, I don't see that it's going to result in significant downdrift erosion. That, of course, was a concern when a rock revetment was proposed, because south of this property, the beaches are currently unarmored. So I am no longer concerned about downdrift impact. So I think this is a reasonable approach for the property. Ideally, of course, my preference when boulder fields are created, and boulder fields are intended to be modeled after natural rocky shorelines. Ideally, I would want to see some of those boulders out in the water, below mean high water, so that they can break up that wave energy and tidal surge a lot sooner before it hits main beach. And doing that can also create great habitat for seaweeds. They attract shorebirds. The difficulty is that this property does not extend out in the waters. The waters are state-owned, so at present, the applicant has no ability to place the rock in the water. So I think this is a great approach for this property. I think it's consistent with the wetland permit issuance standards. That being said, the hearing can be closed tonight. As is the case with all of these types of applications, there is some refinement that will be needed. For instance, development of a more detailed revegetation plan for the site. There'll be a need for survey changes. I will look for the buffer to be covenanted as a naturally vegetated buffer, but those are all items that I can get addressed by working closely with the applicant. So the plan is consistent with my recommendations, and I do recommend that the hearing be closed tonight. Thank you.
Is there anyone in the public who would like to speak in this application?
Good evening, everybody. Thank you. My name is John Petrollo, and I own the house on 31 East Beach Drive, 2 houses away from the proposed project. I am downdrift from their house, and I am opposed to any form of rocks being added to the beach. I am opposed for many reasons. First, I am really worried that it will cause increased erosion to my property. Most hardened structures are shown to cause downdrift erosion, and I feel that it's likely to affect my property in a negative way. I'm worried that it'll have a domino effect of having more and more rocks put on the beach as one homeowner after the next finds the need to prevent erosion that's caused by their neighbor putting rocks on the beach to their property, and they'll have to do it, and then it'll have to be done by the next property over. So that domino effect, I'm worried that it'll transform the most lovely crescent sandy beach into a pile of rocks rather than a sandy beach. I think it will damage it's likely to damage the environment. And I think it's likely to be a barrier as more sand is washed away around these boulders to beachcombers walking on the beach. I appreciate that the original solid rock revetment has been changed, and I think that's a movement in the right direction. And so I do applaud that. I would just like to state that I'm worried about the future of our beautiful beach, and that this will be a negative impact in the long run. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir, did you sign the sign-up sheet also?
I have my.
You did, thank you.
Yes.
I just have a quick comment. I have to make it. Marty Shea, Chief Environmental Analyst for the town. The comments that were offered by the last speaker may actually relate to the next public hearing, as I believe he indicated that his residence is on East Beach Drive. The hearing that's open right now is for a property on East Shore Drive, but the hearing for East Beach Drive is coming up next. And at the property that we just discussed at 31 East Shore Drive, they're no longer proposing a revetment. Those plans have been abandoned. But as we get into the next hearing, you'll learn that there is a fixed stone revetment proposed at that property. I may be wrong, but I'm just offering that for
Just for
the
clarification.
sake of clarity. And that being said, I welcome the speaker to again speak on the next hearing about his concerns.
Is that
about
the case?
revetments.
Is that the case? It's,
Yes.
okay.
Okay.
You can take those comments into consideration for the next hearing, so he doesn't
Need to get up again.
speak again,
Yeah.
unless you want to.
What we're going to do is, we're going to let the people who know how to do this cut and paste. So we're going to take those comments for the next hearing and delete them from this hearing. Is there anyone in the public who'd like to speak on this application? Is there a motion?
Motion to close public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? A 025019, Stephen Tempesta and Jennifer Tempesta.
This is a new public hearing, it has not been opened yet, and we do have affidavits of posting and mailing in compliance with the town code, so the board does have jurisdiction.
Thank you.
This is the same.
Same package? No.
Thank you.
If you bear with me for just a moment, I want to hang these photos up. I didn't want to cover up anybody else's exhibits. So so I waited until just now. Yeah, got them right here.
Probably just a file, but I can hold on to them. Yeah, no, I didn't see them.
Nothing like walking around the rest of the night with push pins in your shoe, you know.
It'll be the first time.
I'll take it. Yeah.
For the applicant, Aram Tertunian, First Coastal, West Hampton Beach, New York. Thank you for the opportunity to address the board. In the original application, we supplied a project narrative, and I don't want to go through every page of it. I know this board is very thorough, and they read all the massive materials that we generate. But what we did in this analysis was to, number one, look at what's going on the immediate site. And then we looked farther to say, why is that happening? So this is just a blow-up of a diagram that's in your narrative. I realized tonight when I was going over my work, it's actually a scaling error. So I thought it was a 1 to 30 inch, it's a 1 to 60 inch. So instead of having 37 feet of loss in 2 years, it's actually 75 feet of loss in 2 years. This situation, I would like to persuade you, is unique. And this is not a situation where an updrift structure is reflecting wave energy and causing downdrift erosion. This is human intervention at the governmental level that has completely changed the sediment dynamics of Willie's Pond and Willie's Pond Inlet. This is a 1930 aerial photo from the Suffolk County GIS. Right here is Willie's Pond. And what you don't see in this photo is the channel that goes out to the bay. You do see it in this 2024 photo. What's happened is that there was a very rich sand system, came down to this natural point. There was a tiny, tiny tidal creek. There was a sinuous tidal creek that wound through a Spartina wetland, which Suffolk County dredged out and created the inlet. What that did was it completely interrupted the sand supply. So instead of having these beautiful shoals right in here downdrift to the inlet, which nourish the beach as the sand is bypassed around the point, now we have a complete literal block. Think of it like, you go and you get the stress test and they tell you you got a 99% block and you're going to the hospital now. That's what's been going on here since the 60s. So no matter how much sand gets placed in here, it's going to be gone in 2 years. And that's exactly what happened here. Suffolk County dredged the material out from the channel. They deposited along this beach, and this area downdrift of the inlet immediately eroded. So this creates a very difficult situation because we can't use beach restoration, which I would prefer to do, because it simply won't work. We go through another series of alternatives here, including a low-sill offshore structure, a vertical bulkhead, beach nourishment with or without a dune, with or without vegetation, and vegetation alone. None of those solutions address the issue, which is a complete block of all sand moving in the system because of governmental intervention. The properties to the north of my client's property have protected themselves against this government intervention by putting in vertical bulkheads. We don't want to do that. What we have proposed, though, is a sloping rock revetment. And the reason we've proposed that is multiple. And let me say this, I would propose a dynamic revetment here if I thought it could work, and B, I could get a permit from the state. Neither one of them are accurate, and here's why. In order for a dynamic revetment or a cobble beach to work, it needs to have a gentle slope that's about 1:8 to 1:10. So if we're going to build a structure that's going to be 5 feet high on the landward side, or 6 feet high on the landward side, we need 50 or 60 feet of beach seaward of that in order to create a slope where the waves are going to break and the energy is going to be dissipated. We don't have that. We have like 25 feet. And in fact, if anybody's been to the house, depending on the tide and the wind, the water is running up to the deck. So there's virtually no room. I got a letter from the DEC this week on this project. They suggested that I build an upland retaining wall, which I'm not going to recommend to my client, because guess what? It's going to erode back to the retaining wall, and then you're going to have a bulkhead, which we don't want. They also told me, oh, by the way, we went to the site, and you have less beach than you said in your application. To which my response is, yes, it's eroding at dozens of feet a year. Of course, there's less now because we submitted the application months and months and months ago. And they're telling me, oh, we want you to move everything landward. Well, we can't. There isn't any room. This is a highly constrained site. So what do we do when we're looking to redevelop this site? What we want to do, and this whole project is not just about a revetment, it's about redeveloping the site with a new house elevated to FEMA, and now going to be elevated to FEMA plus freeboard plus sea level rise. I don't know if everybody's aware, but New York State Building Code will adopt, as of January 1, an additional 18 inches on top of FEMA, on top of freeboard for sea level rise. So all new construction is going to have to meet that standard. We're moving the house as far landward as we can. Well, we've had the engineers have designed a sanitary system of the minimum size acceptable to the health department, as compact as it can possibly be, right up against the road, and then the house is then going to be rebuilt in farther landward, which is going to give us the room that we need, just enough room that we can build this rock revetment. So there's a bunch of other aspects here, one of which has to do with lot coverage. So right now, the lot coverage is about 23%, and we're asking for a modest expansion of about 200 square feet, which is literally the size of the table that we're all looking at. It would push the coverage to 26%. So I looked at that and I said, okay, well, I understand that there's a concern. We don't want to increase lot coverage. But I went back and looked at the old surveys. In 1984, Squires and Holden did a survey here. The lot was 18,000 square feet. In 2022, there was a survey done here, and the lot was 7,600 square feet. Now, it's about 6,000 square feet. So had we applied in 2022, our lot coverage would be fine. We'd be under 20%. Curiously, just down the road, there was another property that came before the board that the board issued a permit on. And when they initially applied, their lot coverage was over 20%. But then the county dredged and placed sand, and all of a sudden, their lot coverage is now 17.8%. So what we're saying is lot coverage is important, but also reasonable is important. So it's not just a number. This is a very modest home, and we're looking for 200 square feet of additional lot coverage. Based upon the fact that this went from an 18,000 square foot lot to a 6,000 square foot lot, as a result of government intervention, I don't think that that's a tremendous ask. And of course, we can only get that coverage from the zoning board, which we will have to go to for pyramid and for height relief because of the new sea level rise criteria and the narrow size of the lot. The concerns of the neighbors are reasonable. Everybody should understand that that there are potential adverse impacts when anything is done. In this case, we've minimized them to the degree possible. So number one, it's a sloping rock structure. It's not a vertical structure. Number two, we've tapered the ends of the structure so it reduces in height as it approaches the property line. And number three, we've provided returns on the structure so that it doesn't have an abrupt end where the water can get around behind it. The alternative of basically doing nothing means that everybody's property is going to continue to erode. And at the erosion rates we're talking about, the additional amount of erosion, if you could calculate it from this rock structure, will be negligible compared to what nature is doing right now. And quite frankly, if a house, if the situation is you're redeveloping the site, moving the house as far landward as you possibly can, and then protecting that house, because if you don't, everything you did is just going to be undone. I think that that's a very reasonable way to approach this type of situation. In fact, this is very much what was done on a site. Marty was kind enough to share some of his initial thoughts with me, so I did some research today. I'm going to prepare this in a more formal manner, but the board has done this in a couple of different cases where they've looked at a site that is highly constrained, and as long as the applicant is making their best efforts to comply, this board has approved it. And in this particular case, without the addition of the revetment, we're just going to be back in here a year from now when the water's under the house, instead of being able to proactive here. And the other part is, this inlet will be dredged again, and the sand will be placed here again, and the beach will come back again, and then it'll erode again. So this is not even, the revetment that we're talking about is really a fail-safe, last-ditch effort. So that is my presentation to the board, and I have Jennifer and Stephen Tempesta, who are the owners, and I believe Jennifer would like to address you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jennifer Tempesta. I own 35 East Beach Drive with my husband. And I'll just start out by giving a little background on all of this. And Aram's photos are amazing. They're so helpful. But I also have some photos that I've taken that really show you what it's like to be in our home and how close the water is coming to our home. So if you could go to the next slide, please. Before I get to the photos, which I think are great, but they really are starkly showing you that there is an imminent problem that we have to solve here, I'll just give you a little background on us and why this is so important to us to make sure that this property does not erode any further. We have been residents of the town for many years. We purchased this property in 2022, and since then have been devising a plan to make sure that we can be there long-term. We are seeking a solution that will protect the property in an environmentally sound way. And as Aram said, we are very much constrained by the size of the property. We love the beaches, just like Mr. Petrillo said earlier, but there's really no sand left. There is no beach where we are. So we need to do what we can to protect what is left. If we go to the next slide. So I already mentioned we moved into our home in 2022. Shortly thereafter, the county dredged in September of 2022. All of a sudden, there was sand placed behind our home. I'm estimating it was approximately 100 feet of beach when that first happened. It's all gone and more. There is not 1 ounce of sand left behind our home. It was shocking how quickly the erosion happened. This is proof that a soft solution, like placing sand, isn't going to cut it. We have to do something else. And like Aram said, it will be great if the county does that again. When it was there, it was amazing, but it doesn't last. If we could go to the next slide. So this is September 26, 2022, after the dredging, after the sand placement. I'm standing in the water taking a photo of my modest home on East Beach Drive. It looks pretty great. You've got a lot of sand there. That is a nice beach. We go to the next slide. This shows 2 different time periods. On the left is September 2022. We've got a ton of beach there. On the right, October 2025. Our house is circled in a little red line. You can barely see it. But what you can see is that the water is practically on our deck. Can you go to the next slide, please? This is our home October 13th. So this was right after that nor'easter. The water is touching our deck. There is no room to put a dynamic revetment here. There's simply no room. If we leave it as is and we don't put in some sort of permanent structure, the house is going to be underwater. That is the only reasonable conclusion based on the amount of erosion that we've seen. I mean, take a moment to take in this picture, what has happened, what a difference in the shoreline from 2022 to 2025. It is almost unbelievable. And we are here respectfully asking you to let us protect our home. It cannot be the intent of Chapter 325 to permit properties and homes to be destroyed. That just cannot be the intent of that code. We've got to be able to do something that is responsible and well thought out and supported by science and the facts, and that is what we are trying to do. We hired experts from First Coastal and DeLandro Engineering to help us, and this is the plan that they came up with. If we go to the next slide. This is just another view right in the same time period in October 2025. I'm looking down the beach from one of my neighbor's properties. In red there, that's our septic system underwater. So you tell me, if it is not in imminent danger, if our septic is not in imminent danger and our home is not in imminent danger, what is? We could go to the next slide, please. So this is the only picture I'll show you that is not of East Beach Drive. It might seem a little dramatic, but this is a photo from North Carolina in October of this year, where these are raised homes, and we're agreeing to raise the home. But the point is, that is not a solution. Raising the home alone does not stop erosion. Raising the home alone is not going to stop my home from eventually washing away when there's a big storm. We do not want to invest in a new home and a new septic system if after a big storm it is going to wash away like all of those homes in Buxton, North Carolina did in October of 2025. Next slide, please. This is just another view here, really just showing that there is no beach, there is no sand here. We have to do something to protect what is left. And for these homes, there is no beach left. Again, this picture was taken in the middle of October of this year. There's just one more picture I'd like to show you. So I understand the Colony Club owns an access path to the beach. That's on the next slide, please. And this is the access path. I took a photo. This is between 43 East Beach Drive and 45 East Beach Drive. It's a couple houses down from where we live at 35. This is not an access path to the beach. There is no beach. That's a problem, right? And what we are proposing to do is not going to affect anyone's beach access. What we are proposing to do is just going to protect our property and our home. I want to just go back to a few slides earlier where you see the water coming up to the deck. I think this is a picture of what is happening at our house today. And we need to do something immediately or with really prompt action to save our house. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a comment, please.
Well, wait a minute. Marty's going to speak first, and then there'll be a chance for the public.
Good evening, again, Marty Shea, Chief Environmental Analyst for the town. I would start by saying that in view of the lot size constraints, and in view of the risk of erosion and flooding, the applicant should be coming forward with a plan for a much smaller home than is being proposed at this time. The applicant is looking for the board's approval for a house footprint and deck footprint, which would be significantly larger than what exists at present. In cases where considerable relief is needed from the wetland permit issuance standards, and you're dealing with a pre-existing non-conforming home, your plan should be to come forward with a plan that decreases the level of non-conformity at the site. Initially, you would look at coming forward with a plan whose coverage does not exceed the existing coverage, but in a case like this, you want to entertain a house and deck that's significantly smaller than the dwelling that currently exists. In this zoning district, in all likelihood, the minimum allowable coverage for the footprint for the dwelling is probably 700 square feet. In the case of a two-story residence, the minimum allowable square footage would be a combined total of 1,200 square feet, meaning if you build a modern box-shaped house or something similar, you would have 600 square feet of first floor and 600 square feet of second floor. As indicated by my preliminary advisory report on record dated September 22nd, 2025, the existing dwelling has a footprint of 1,354 square feet. Rather than maintain or reduce that footprint, the applicant is coming forward with a plan that calls for a first floor footprint of 1,674. The existing residence has a waterside deck whose square footage takes in 517 square feet. Rather than retain that footprint size or reduce that footprint size in an attempt to decrease the level of nonconformity and to lessen the risk of storm damage, the applicant is seeking your approval for 810 square feet of deck. So they're looking for, while the home may yet be a moderate-sized home, they're looking for this board to approve a house and deck footprint that's significantly increases the degree of wetland nonconformity on the site. Of course, we all acknowledge that the property historically was much larger, so that when the initial dwelling and additions were built, that the coverage did not exceed the minimum allowable 20% of roof coverage, but because the lot has decreased in size significantly, the current coverage is larger than it is permitted. The applicant is seeking, again, and it's indicated on the survey, to increase the roof structural coverage from approximately 23% to 26%. Certainly on a site like this, where you need very considerable relief and you're concerned about erosion, you're concerned about flooding, the last thing you want to do is increase the structural square footage. In fact, I would offer that the structural square footage of the new dwelling should be reduced to about 600 or 700 square feet as a first floor footprint with allowance for a second floor footprint. Just to give you some quick history on this, the applicant had initially approached me in the winter of 2023, 2024 for guidance with respect to moving forward. And I had emailed pre-application review recommendations where I indicated, for one, that at the very least, the coverage should not be, the structural coverage should not be increased. Number two, that the house needs to be built on pilings raised above open exposed pilings. And I expressed concerns about a revetment, and my recollection is I indicated that I could not support construction of a revetment. The applicant came in with this application over a year later, and I'm not saying that the applicant made any significant changes in response to my recommendations. Now, when the application was first made this year, there was no indication as part of this application that the dwelling was going to be elevated on pilings. What the applicant indicated was that a FEMA-compliant dwelling would be built. Well, the house is actually in an AE zone. It's not in a VE zone. So what that appeared to mean is that the applicant was entertaining building a house on a poured concrete foundation with hydrostatic flood vents, which would comply with the FEMA AE standards. The unfortunate thing about the FEMA flood zone mapping is that it looks strictly at elevations. It doesn't significantly consider localized conditions unless an application is made for an amendment to the flood zone designation. So it is good to hear that the applicant has apparently now made a commitment to build the new home on elevated pilings. The pilings are intended to secure the residence and deck from major storm damage during flooding and storm events. Pilings do not totally eliminate any risk of storm damage, but typically what you would have in a case like this, if you have a significant storm event and the house on pilings, is that the water will come up higher on the property. Of course, if the applicant is using the ground level below the piling elevated home for storage, for various materials, that storage area will be impacted. The garage, which should be built with breakaway walls if it's built, is going to sustain substantial damage. But what the elevation of the structure on pilings allows, it allows for natural flood and drainage process to occur. So typically what occurs, particularly on a bay beach, I should mention, and the applicant did clarify the photos that were provided as part of the applicant's submittal in an attempt to show that elevation of homes on pilings does not address storm impacts, was taken along oceanfront, where the intensity of storm events and flooding is significantly greater than what you would have on a bayfront. I know of no case in recent years where we've seen the kind of damage that was shown in those North Carolina photos in the Peconic Bay in Southampton. So to share those photos, and the applicant did say, yeah, this is kind of extreme or something to that effect. Highly unlikely, even with the inlet interference with literal transport of sand, the aggravation of those impacts by the bulkheading to the north of the site, it's highly unlikely that the erosion is going to keep continuing right up to the roadway. So, yeah, you could get additional erosion, and that's part of the reason why you want to look at scaling. You got to be reasonable. You got to look at what you got and say, does it really make sense to build a large house on a property like this, even larger than what we have right now? No. You want to consider a much smaller house, elevated pilings, so you have greater security against storm events. The applicant has indicated that the dynamic revetment approach is not workable on this property. And I would say at present it's not, because of the narrowness of the beach. The applicant should be doing is looking at a plan for the long term. This beach will get renourished again as a result of Suffolk County Department of Public Works dredging of the Woolly Pond Inlet. We all wish that was going to occur very soon, but it will occur. When that beach is widened, significantly widened by placement of dredge material, that would be the time that you want to go forward with construction of a dynamic revetment and place a considerable amount of cobble with a cobble berm to try and stabilize as much as is practicable the placed dredge material. Are you still going to lose significant amounts of dredge material? And is there still going to be significant amounts of erosion? Yes, there is, but I would offer that it would be less. We had, as this board knows, we had several hearings on applications that were made for revetments on the two abutting properties to the north. And there was a lot of discussion of practicable alternatives. And one of the suggestions that I offered to one of the neighboring landowners that they should contact the marina in the Woolly Pond system to see if they have current dredging needs, to look at the quality of any material that could be dredged, and look to see if they could work out an arrangement where that dredged material could be pumped to the erosion-affected properties. That never transpired. I'm not sure why. But, because Chapter 325 requires that you consider all practicable alternatives, I think, it would be beneficial for the landowner to look at the greater Woolly Pond area, look at the contact the marina, and see if there are currently plans or currently needs to dredge that material, and then to utilize, potentially utilize these beaches for placement of dredge material. The preliminary advisory report that is on record expresses a lot of, recommends, again, elevation. It recommends that the size of the house not be increased. And it also raises significant concerns with regard to the wetland and beach impacts of fixed revetments, in that as a consequence of the wave energy being knocked downward in front of that revetment, whether or not it's fixed as angled or vertical, it can actually accelerate beach loss and actually lower the bay bottom even further. When you do that, when a revetment has those impacts, the risk of flooding and storm damage even become greater at a property that's already compromised, and that's because you have deeper water, so you have higher waves and you have greater wave energy. So there needs to be some greater consideration, not only of what impacts in the short term, the revetment might provide some stabilization. How is that revetment going to interact with the bayside? Is it going to potentially cause the opposite impact of what you're looking for, and that is possibly increase erosion rates? The area is eroding very fast already after the dredge material is placed, so you may say, well, how much faster could this area erode? Now, when I talk about looking at alternatives like seeing whether or not dredged material can be taken from, let's say, the marina in the Woolley Pond system and pumped to the site, of course I'm not saying that just pure sand should be placed on the property. You would want place heavy amounts of bay cobble and create a cobble berm as well. So as expressed by the preliminary advisory report, the concern about constructing a revetment is not only that it may actually make the situation worse, and second, I should mention that in significant storm events, it's probably not going to provide the protection that the applicant is hoping for. But the major risk is downdrift impacts. As this board knows, the beaches to the south of this all are unarmored. And if we are to entertain armoring this beach, we have to be as sure as we can be that that armoring, that fixed armoring, is not going to result in downdrift impacts. Yes, the dredged material downdrift is going to erode over time as well. But will the installation of the revetment actually accelerate erosion to the south, thereby adversely impacting properties? So the board not only needs to consider the impacts on the bay, the impacts on wetlands, the impacts on the beach, the impacts on erosion as a consequence of building a revetment, but their charge is also to make sure that what this applicant does on this property is not going to adversely impact properties downdrift. Now, the applicant, I believe, has indicated, well, the southern reach of the revetment is going to descend and maybe curl, and that will diminish downdrift impacts. But at present, based upon the data that has been submitted, I'm not convinced that that'll be sufficient to avoid downdrift impacts. So one of the approaches that could be taken here, in addition to coming in with a much smaller residence elevator on pilings, at this property. There may be a little bit room to push it a little bit closer to the close to the road, but there's not a large lot as was indicated, so they don't have a lot of opportunity to push the house close to the road. But the applicant should consider making both a short-term and long-term commitment to significant cobble and sand placement on this beach. What I'm hoping for, as expressed earlier, that if that commitment is made and significant amounts of cobble and sand are placed, Seawood of the new residents, they can kind of hold the line until the area benefits from the placement of significant dredge material. There may be other temporary stabilization measures that would be needed, because what you want to do is, when this property gets renourished again by the Suffolk County Department of Public Works, placement of a dredge material, that is the time to go forward with dynamic revetment and placement of significant amounts of cobble. So in quick summation, I think there's a lot more work that needs to be done here in terms of further evaluation of alternatives, downsizing of the residence, alternatives to revetment. There needs to be a greater analysis of the potential for downdrift impacts, because this board needs to be absolutely assured, if they approve a revetment at this property, a conventional revetment, that it's not going to worsen the erosion on the downdrift properties. The unfortunate thing that also could happen here is, if a revetment is approved on this property, and erosion occurs downdrift, then you'll have the next landowner downdrift come in with a plan for a revetment. You'll have the two properties to the north come in with revetments. Every time you construct those revetments, you're actually intensifying the erosion that's occurring seaward and downdrift of those erosions. And then you're going to have a domino effect. Each landowner that is presently unarmored is then going to come to this board to look to armor their beach to counteract the impacts of armoring on the adjacent property to the north. And we have a significant stretch of beach along East Beach Drive here. It provides significant benefits to the public. And the last thing we want to see is the action that is taken on this application resulting in a domino effect of the properties to the south then coming in with revetments. Because the end result of a continuum of revetments or bulkheads, and I don't support a retaining wall, I would agree with that. I'm surprised that the DEC would make that recommendation. The end result of that is that you're going to lose the beach. You're going to lose this entire stretch of beach seaward of that armoring. And this stretch of beach is going to look like the majority of the shorefront properties along the Little Peconic Bay, where, as a consequence of historic bulkheading and revetment construction, there is no beach. The beach has been entirely lost. What actually happens is several things. Armoring results in a conversion of the type of tidal wetlands to more of an intertidal wetland to submerged tidal wetlands. So the habitat is not only being lost, it's being converted to a different kind of habitat. You also interfere with the public's foreshore rights to access and walk between mean low and mean high water on the beach. You lose all values for wildlife in terms of shorebirds, being able to, and waterfowl being able to feed along the rack line. So we have to consider not only the site-specific impacts of construction of a revetment, but the potential cumulative impacts long-term on this stretch of beach. So that being said, I think I'll reserve further comment at this time. I would ask that the applicant spend additional time evaluating alternative approaches here. It's only to their benefit and to the benefit of the greater community to do that. And the house absolutely needs to be, the footprint of the house and deck absolutely needs to be scaled down. The last thing you want to do in a property that's threatened by erosion and flooding is to build even a bigger house. That's going to be a greater risk than the current house. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. I'm sorry?
Sure. You can.
Well, let's wait a minute. We'll open up to the public soon, but not yet. Any questions by the board?
Not yet.
Do you want to respond to anything, Earl?
Well, I figured I'd let the public speak and then I'll respond.
Okay. We've heard a lot of testimony on this application. The testimony we hear on such applications with shore armoring are fairly consistent, both by the applicant and by this board. And I believe it's safe to say that there's a great deal of research that shows that armoring a shoreline such as this will cause additional erosion, particularly downstream of the project. For us to issue a permit, impacts need to be mitigated. If we cannot mitigate those impacts, then the project does not meet the conditions for issuance of a permit. So we need to work towards, as the law recommends or charges us, to look at alternatives. And there are always alternatives. They may not be pleasant, they may be painful, and various degrees of painful, but that's what we're charged to do. This application has significant work to be done on it. There are some serious problems, and the testimony that Marty has given outlines many of those problems. And the testimony of the applicant shows the restraints and constraints. So some way we need to break beyond that and think outside of where we're going so far to find something that will work in order for us to issue a permit on this application. So this is a process. It's most unlikely that we will end up issuing a permit for a armoring of the shoreline. And none of that is to belittle the seriousness of the problem at all. But we don't want to we don't want to substitute another problem for this problem and solve one problem and cause two others. So that's where we are right now. I would say this project is still very fluid, and I would like to open up to the public. What's important for the public to speak on is not to give your opinion about whether you like the project or not. We're going to make a decision, this board's going to make a decision based on Chapter 325 and based on the law and based on what's reasonable for this property and this area. We need good, solid information and research and ideas that will lead to something that's positive. We do not make a decision based on popularity. It doesn't matter how many people are for or against. That does not enter into how we move on this application. So if you have something to say that will help us make a decision, then we would like to hear it. If you have something to say that's already been said, that's redundant and it's not necessary and wastes everybody's time. So with that, I would like to open up to the public, and who would like to speak? Sir, you want to speak before?
Question, please.
You have to be heard by the mic, so I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah,
Yeah. Sorry to do that to you. And just could you
Start by
restate your name,
identifying
please?
your name again.
Once again, I'm John Petrollo. I appreciated Marty's comments very much. Thank you. I have a two-part question about alternatives. I think one possible alternative, and I got this idea from Marty at a previous hearing on another discussion on the beach, was for a shellfish reef in the water. I appreciate that that's state property. So my first question is, do you feel that a shellfish reef would be helpful in maintaining the replenishment when it does occur? And second of all, if it's likely to be helpful, how do we go about working with the state to get a long stretch of shellfish reach that will benefit multiple houses along the whole beach? That's my
I hear your question. This is probably not the best time to address that question. That's as they say, a two-beer conversation.
Yes.
But it's a good thought that we should not let die. Is there someone like to speak on this application? Ma'am, you had your hand up earlier.
Good evening, Chairman Ludlow and the board. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I think that I might have something to say about what happens down there on East Beach Drive. I am sure you
Could you just identify
recognize me. I'm
yourself,
Judy
please?
Gallagher
Thank you.
at 39 East Beach Drive. I've been there almost 40 years. This is a recent picture. I think everyone can see what happened to the beach there as it eroded. It built a wall, or whatever you want to call it. That was never there before. That happened very recently. And down the beach, a few houses north of the pavilion, you're probably familiar with the pavilion, the sand, it stopped eroding there, and every house has a very large beach. As a matter of fact, they have my sand, and they have the Tempesta sand and Sarkozy's sand. I've had conversations with Marty about it. That's our sand down there, because it washes down and deposits right there. So there must be something that causes that beach to stay large, if you will. Am I making sense? It erodes, yes, to maybe, it looks like it's heading for Caruso's house, but farther down, the beach does not disappear. Never does it disappear. Just like on West Beach Drive, nothing. So to look at this picture with severe erosion, there weren't any rocks there at my house, Sarkozy's house, even Tempesta's. And that happened without the presence of rocks. So how can we look at that and say, well, rocks are going to cause the domino effect? This is happening without any rocks at all. I just think it's something to consider. And if anybody wants to come down and look at the sand, the large beaches that happened before the pavilion, I think it would be interesting to take a look at that. But I'm here, Brian and I are here to wholeheartedly support the Tempestas in their project. First of all, we spent a good 6 to 8 years trying to protect our house, and were turned down every single time we came here. We're taking a break because the stress on our family was more than we were willing to continue to suffer. But we're not done yet by any means. But that is the reason that we took a break. The Tempestas they bought their house 2 years ago, 3 years ago? 2022. And I am sure they bought it in good faith, thinking that the board would help them to protect their house. I don't understand the talk about the lot not being big enough to a slightly bigger house. They've got one of the smallest houses on each beach drive. So, I mean, although I have 1,000 things I could say, I'm not going to, stand here and go over things I have for the past few years. But those are my points. Yes, they have to do something to their house. I have nothing. I don't have one scintilla of sand in front of my house. I have beautiful cobble, but absolutely no sand. The water comes up to my deck. We're watching it, and we're keeping our fingers crossed. But the Tempestas have an opportunity maybe to, to improve their house. They're even willing to build it up. As their neighbor to the north, maybe northeast, we fully support them, and I know the position that they're in. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Good evening. I'm Tim Mahoney. I'd like to say that Tempestas are the best neighbors a man could ask for, and their family's awesome. But what we got going here is, Aram said it best, we got the flow of sand going from east to west. We've got the government intervention, which is where that channel came from. And on this end right here, we've got a house that's got a bulkhead around it, which is causing all kinds of erosion here, and elsewhere. We've got emergency boats in North Sea Harbor, and they do dredge that on an annual basis. So all of the sand ends up down by Towed Point, which is North Sea Harbor, which has just been dredged. Why can't they take that sand as they're dredging it and pump it up to East Beach Drive? You're going to have the flow of water, but if you get, and this is for Aram as well, if you get the sand out beyond those bulkheads, there's a good chance you could get a stable beach. Because even if you go the other side of the inlet into Woolly Pond, which would be here, you got rock revetments here, and here. Then you got Peconic Bay Avenue, and then there's no sand beyond that either. So that natural flow of sand has been interrupted by the government intervention. And whoever gave the permit to the guy at the end of East Beach Drive to put up them bulkheads, hopefully he's not here, but that was not a very good move. And you know what? First Coastal just said that, we can modify our proposal, we can modify this. Once it's done, it's done. And I think that there's many solutions, but that's not my business. But it's an urgency, because the Tempestas, my family has a house right next door, and the water is practically coming in the front door. So it is urgent, but a permanent solution has got to be arrived at. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Good evening. Irene Petrillo, 25 East Beach Drive. I just want to say that I'm happy that the board is considering all of the ramifications of having a revetment and to fixed returns. And I leave it up to your wisdom and Marty Shea to come up with a solution that does not adversely affect the houses down the beach
Thank you.
and the rest of the relatives.
And God bless America.
Any other comments by the public? Aram? We're going to wrap this up, but if you'd like to...
mercifully brief.
Aram Tertunian, First Coastal, West Hampton Beach, on behalf of the applicant. I believe that my client Jennifer Tempesta would like to address you as well, so I'm going to move very quickly. I sense that my role here tonight is to listen and to make sure I have the full list of questions, because I understand that you want more information, and that's reasonable. Something that struck me when Judy Gallagher was speaking, and that's why listening is so important. She touched upon something that I'm going to discuss in a lot of detail, but I want to introduce the subject tonight. In coastal processes, when you have a headland right here, there's a mathematical relationship between the stable point down here and the maximum indentation over here. That's why when they build the beach out like this, it goes right back. That's what's going on here. And the problem is the stable configuration is under a couple of homes. And no matter how much sand you put there, it's going to go back. Now, the other thing that Judy mentioned was that she doesn't have any sand on her beach, she has cobble. Well, that's what's happened. All the sand gets washed away and the cobble's left. The problem is this. This increased wave energy here that's caused by the inlet being cut and the interruption of the sand, the cobble that's there is not big enough. It's you go there, you'll see it's pebbly, and there's some cobble stuff up to 3-4 inches, but that is not stable there as well. So I just wanted to introduce those coastal processes ideas to you, because when I delve into them further, it's one of the reasons that we have rejected some of the alternatives is because the physics of this site don't allow them to occur. And I think one of the things I would say to the board is that we can't ignore the physics. And I will give you a lot more detail, but what's fascinating for me, Judy, is that you picked up on the exact thing. It's stable down here. In fact, nothing we do, and I'm telling you, and unsupported, but I'm going to tell you, what we do up in here is not going to have any effect here, because whatever sand goes here immediately moves there, and that's why that point is stable. And it's stable over time because the frequency of the dredging in the inlet is such that enough sand gets there to maintain stability. And if you go down to that pavilion, they have a new Pioneer Dune accreting out in front of it, and it is all the sand that came from here. It's just not stable. So anyway, I also handed up to the board late on Friday, and something that I've given to you. I'm not going to go through this, but there were a number of statements made in the preliminary staff report which I don't agree with. And I detailed those in the report, and I direct your attention to them. I try very, very hard when I address this board that if I give you a piece of information, I'm backing it up with this. And one of the statements that was made that I'll just illustrate is that somehow an eroding beach is an attractive habitat for horseshoe crabs and other things. It isn't. I mean, the whole thing is that if the beach is eroding, even the benthic invertebrate are not stable. They're being removed from their habitat and then having to recolonize again. So eroding beaches, of course, or shorelines or cobble beaches, yes, they do have some environmental value, but it's very reduced by the fact it's eroding. So the wetland that we're talking about here is highly compromised as we speak today. And that's because of the cut at the inlet. So what I am going to do is just, if you don't mind, looking at my notes, come up with a list of information, and then please add to that list or subtract. That'd be great. I think that you want some more description of the alternatives. The alternatives I'm hearing are, from Marty, are reduce the house. I'm hearing wait until they dredge again and then do something, which I think that we can all agree the Tempestas don't have time to wait. The other thing I heard, which was actually very interesting from Tim Mahoney, which was, why can't we take the sand from North Sea and move it up here? You can. It's just really expensive, and it's not stable. It's just not stable in that area. And that technique is something called backpassing. So you may be familiar with bypassing, which is when you dredge the sand from the inlet and bypass it around. Backpassing is the opposite. You take it from where it's collected on the downdrift and you move it back to the updrift. It's actually a technique that we do use. The other thing that I heard was that you would like some quantitative information on the potential impact of this structure. Is that correct?
Yes. What I'm hearing you say is, from your physics class,
I did really poorly in physics, I got to tell you.
let's just say you couldn't do it in one season, took you another 30 years, but you got there. You seem to be suggesting that there are few solutions to the size of the dynamicness of this area.
Really limits our choices. The other thing I want to point out is that I'm getting a tremendous amount of pushback from the DEC. So if we could build a cobble beach along 500 feet of waterfront extending 100 feet out into the bay, that's something I might consider. But doing it on a 63-foot wide lot, no. It's not going to work. It simply doesn't work. And I don't think that, based upon the current urgency of the Tempesta situation, that, forcing them to organize a dozen property owners into a collective project or to wait for the county to do something is a reasonable course of action. And, perhaps in the future, there may be a time where all the neighbors can get together and do a project, and these are very expensive. Not everybody can afford them. Then the revetment that we're proposing becomes an afterthought. The board will remember the project we had on the Peconic River many years ago, where it was a replacement of an existing concrete block retaining wall that was damaged during Sandy. And what we did, what the board approved in that situation was the client was able to rebuild the concrete wall, but they had to build in front of it, cover it with earth and plant it with native vegetation. I went by there about 3 weeks ago. It's doing great. So the fact that we do a revetment today doesn't prevent us from doing something else in the future that renders it, the impact to it zero. But not doing something now has a very real impact. Is there something else that the board would like me to investigate?
That's a good start. Quite frankly, I don't know what the answer is. Very concerned about impacts to the neighbors. You're suggesting that there are no impacts because it's already happened. And changing that shoreline as it's receded to this point, and it's receded, it may have receded, there's probably a limit to how much it can recede before the physics starts to balance between the point and the accretion area.
Exactly right.
But we just don't know if that's gonna be one more foot, or if
Well,
it's gonna be another 25 feet.
Well, that's why math comes in handy. There are a number of peer-reviewed papers on this precise issue. And I will be researching them for you.
And this is maybe pie in the sky, because I don't think we have the authority to do anything about it anyway, but when you looked at that point as the creek comes out of Woolly Pond, if that point was sticking out into the water farther, that would probably change the whole dynamics of the area. If it went out another 30 feet.
No, but this point right here?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because that's the key point where that's where the energy initiates.
Yes, that is where, this fixed point is where the energy initiates from. But again, everything comes back to the sand supply. This is after the fact. Had the sand supply not been interrupted, nobody would be here today talking about it. So let's go sue Suffolk County. No, just kidding. All right, I have my list. I'm gonna, I'd like you to, schedule us a time to come back, but I believe Mrs. Tempesta would like to address you, if that's okay?
Okay, and it may be that during the time between now and the next time we come back here, there can be some communication between this board or this office and you, but either way, to try to work through some of the direction where we're gonna end up.
Yeah, very good. Happy to do that.
Very briefly, just to make sure we are taking concrete steps to move forward. I know that Aram has action items, but because there is some urgency to this situation, we do want to make sure we get a next hearing date. And I did want to seek clarification on one thing that you said, Chairman Ludlow. You indicated it's highly unlikely that a permit would be granted for a revetment. If we present scientific information that shows that the risks to the neighbors because of what we plan to do is negligible, based on if we hire an expert, if we provide you with strong scientific data, would that be enough to change your mind?
Notice I did not say absolute. There's a reason for that, and that is because I don't know enough about it. But I do know that I've heard some of the same principles over and over and over again, and that's why I said highly unlikely. But you are correct. If it turns out that there is some physics going on here that's beyond the scope of the alternatives we've looked at, we need to pay attention to that. And if it is if it actually is the case that this is one of those extremely rare cases where a shore hardening structure is necessary, I wouldn't want to stand in the way of that.
Understood. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I'd just like to make a quote from a scientific paper called Shore Management on Long Island. And I would like to quote from it in respect to revetments specifically. And it says, "These structures can increase erosion rates on adjacent lands." That's science. I have copies of these for everybody if you'd like to have 10 copies. I'd like my sister to hold up a poster that I've made from this article, and it shows this way. And you can see a revetment. You can see where beach erosion is affecting the downdrift areas. That's me. I don't want you to approve a revetment to help one property.
You've said that before, we got that.
Yeah.
We got that.
At-
Saying it
at my
again doesn't
cost.
help. It just wastes our time. We got that.
I'm finished, thank you.
We're moving beyond the generalities in this hearing. We know the generalities. We've expressed them. You've heard them. What we need on this, for this application is specifics. We want to know what's going on right here, not what goes on across Long Island. Is there something different that's going on right here? If there is, we should pay attention to that. If we're being caught up with some verbiage here and there's not, we need to pay attention to that also. So we need to discern those things. We need a little bit of time to do that. We do have time in a month to come back with a hearing. I don't know if that's enough time for you or for us.
Just one moment. If you want us to consider some of that information, that article, please make sure Karina has a copy of that. For the record.
It has to be stamped.
Into the record, it won't be reviewed.
Yeah. Then 2 weeks, there are 2 hearings. December 3rd, there's 1 hearing, and December 17th, there's 2 hearings. Each one of those dates has a new one, which takes longer than adjourned ones. But just to give them an idea of how much room they have to fit themselves into for the next month or so, month and a half.
Yeah, I don't see anything in January yet. Do you? You don't have
We don't have anything in January to see whether we've scheduled something that
Okay.
far.
Aram, how much time do you need?
I'd like to come back in a month if you have room on the calendar.
We do.
December 3rd,
If I have
Otherwise, it's
I'll
December
let you know
7th.
within a couple of weeks.
3rd or 17th of December.
Okay.
17th, okay. There are 2, and that may be more.
Yeah. it's-
Okay, but each one
This
has,
one is-
each one has a new,
Yeah.
so new takes longer to present, so.
Okay.
Anybody
Is there a motion to adjourn till December
Anybody
7th?
anybody else or Zoom has to say anything?
Yeah, we've been through that.
Okay.
there
Motion to adjourn to December 17th.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye,
Opposed? Thank you.
thank you.
Want to leave?
I can stay a couple minutes.
Thank you all for coming. I would appreciate just if you would be quiet on your way out. You can talk in the hall. We have a lot more on the agenda to cover. And it's all recorded, and it's difficult to hear the recording when there's other voices in the background.
Or we can ignore you.
All right.
That quiet meant to stop talking.
Okay. Talk in the hall, please. Gotta go home, but you can't stay here.
Advisory reports, Townsend of Noyak Road subdivision.
It's a final subdivision plat that's been referred by the planning board for a track at 4490 Noyak Road in Hamlin or Noyak. There are 3 suggested comments. The first indicates that the final subdivision plat with the latest revision date of September 2nd, 2025 is consistent with the recommendations of the Conservation Board's January 8, 2025 advisory report, which requested that street trees be planted. Second, in furtherance of such advisory report, Conservation Board yet asks that the driveway for proposed Lot 2 be constructed of pervious materials, be equipped with subsurface drainage in order to prevent excessive discharge, stormwater runoff onto Noyak Road. And thirdly, the existing asphalt drive for proposed Lot 1 should likewise be converted to pervious stone.
Is there a motion to send these comments to the planning board?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Advisory report 29239B referral. Baywater, Seawater, Bellwater.
Sir?
Had you started to say something? I don't want to interrupt.
Yeah, that's all right, go ahead.
Speak. As required by the town code, the planning board has referred a subdivision that is a lot line modification for 4 lots on Noack Road in Noack. They front on wetlands. I did have an opportunity to work with the Planning Division to ensure that the conditions are consistent with the Chapter 325 standards. So you do have draft conditions of final approval for this lot line modification that are compatible with Chapter 325 and thus can be approved by this board.
Resolved that the Conservation Board hereby approves the draft conditions of final approval for the subdivision lot line modification of Baywater, Seawater, Wellwater LLC, which were referred by the Planning Board to the Conservation Board on October 30th, 2025. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Administrative wetlands are in your packets. Resolution of conditional approval, A 025021, Mark Charbonneau and Donna Charbonneau. The applicant requests postponed until November 19th, 2025. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? A 025024, William Gouger and Marilyn Gouger.
Goger.
Any discussion?
Move to issue.
Second.
Resolved that a conditional wetland permit approval be granted to William Gouger and Marilyn Gouger for the proposed project on the terms and conditions set forth therein. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? A 025,
We have to wait for Wallace.
we have,
Oh, yeah,
Oh, yes,
four.
we need 5, yes.
we need 5?
Yeah.
Well, that's,
Yes. That's why it's back on again. We didn't have 5 in the first place.
all right. So we'll back the truck up when Leslie comes in. A 025028, John F. Wallace III. Any discussion?
Second.
Resolved that a conditional wetland permit approval be granted to John F. Wallace.
You only have
Yeah.
members,
Oh, wait, here's,
Yeah.
we, one second.
majority plus 1.
Yeah,
For John F. Wallace?
for Wallace.
Okay. We have the 5th here.
Yep.
So, resolved that a conditional wetland permit approval be granted to John F. Wallace III for the proposed project on the terms and conditions set forth therein. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that's fine. Do we need 5 for the Gouger property?
No, it was just the Wallace.
Oh,
Goger,
okay,
Goger.
okay, I misinterpreted that. Okay, A 025029, Joan C. Hatfield Matthews. Any discussion?
Move to issue. Second.
Resolved that a conditional wetland permit approval be granted to Joan C. Hatfield Matthews for the proposed project on the terms and conditions set forth therein. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Preliminary review of strict determination, A 024028, Douglas Bowger.
This application relates to a residentially developed property on Turtle Cove Drive in North Sea that contains town and state regulated tidal wetlands. The applicant has put forward a redevelopment plan that requires considerable relief from the wetland permit issuance standards. There is a preliminary advisory report on file dated October 29, 2025. Significant additional information is needed to make a determination. As such, a public hearing needs to be scheduled.
Public hearing. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
It be resolved that the board schedules a public hearing for Douglas Bauger for December 3rd, 2025, that a notice of public hearing be published in the town designated newspaper pursuant to Chapter 325, Section 325-8C of the Town Code. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That was quick.
And the next application is A 025, let's see, is that right? Yeah, A 025025, 19 Cold Spring Court LLC.
This application relates to a vacant lot that contains extensive town regulated wetlands. There is a advisory report on file dated October 28, 2025. The applicant is looking for this board's approval and a wetland permit in order to construct a large residence with accessory improvements within the on-site wetlands. As such, considerable additional information is needed to make a determination, and a public hearing needs to be held.
So, let's see, is there a motion to
Schedule a public
Schedule a public hearing for December 17th.
Second?
resolve that the Town Conservation Board hereby schedules the public hearing for December 17th, 2025, and that a notice of public hearing be published in the town designated newspaper pursuant to Chapter 325, Section 325, U.S. of the Town Code. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? A 025038, Patricia Bencardino as trustee of the Patricia Bencardino Trust.
This application relates to an existing residentially developed property with frontage on Old Fort Pond. It contains state and town regulated tidal wetlands. The application has been put forth in order to demolish and reconstruct the residence and conforming wetland setbacks. There are accessory improvements as well, as the work would occur generally within the existing improved footprint or landward of that footprint. I put forward a drawing to the applicant recommending that a restored 50-foot wide covenanted naturally vegetated buffer be established, as well as wetland preservation area. The applicant has agreed to all the recommended mitigation. As such, we have sufficient information to make a determination, and the public hearing requirement can be waived.
Move to waive the public hearing?
Resolved that the Town Conservation Board hereby waives the public hearing requirement pursuant to Chapter 325, Section 325-80 of the Town Code. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? A 025039, Judy Temmel.
This application relates to a residentially developed property on White's Lane in the hamlet of Tuckahoe. There is a preliminary advisory report dated October 29, 2025 on file. The property abuts town and state regulated freshwater wetlands. The applicant is looking for this board's approval and a wetland permit to construct a two-story addition. There were a host of outstanding issues at the property related to non-compliant fencing and discard of landscape debris. All those issues have been addressed, as the property is located at least 100 feet landward of the adjacent wetlands. There is no need to establish a covenanted buffer on this property. As such, the project is compatible with the wetland permit issuance standards. No significant additional information is needed. There is no public interest in the application. As such, the public hearing requirement can be waived.
Motion to waive the public hearing.
Second?
Resolved that the Town Conservation Board hereby waives the public hearing requirement pursuant to Chapter 325, Section 325-80 of the Town Code. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? A 025033, Gregory S. Little. The applicant requests postponement until November 19th, 2025.
Motion to postpone to November 19th.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution to transfer conditional approval, A 024045, Holly Cards LLC. This is just a transfer. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Resolved that a conditional wetland permit approval be granted to Holly Cards LLC for the proposed project upon the terms and conditions set forth therein. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you all.